So for the benefit of the public, we thought we would, and in view of the abbreviated agenda tonight, we thought we'd go through the strategic planning process very briefly, as this is acting as kind of the springboard of future decision-making, hopefully, by the City Council, depending upon the acceptance of annual strategic planning sessions. This is our first time in more than 12 years that we've undertaken strategic planning. Strategic planning was done in 2002 in a little different format. It was more of a plan to make a plan, and we've spent the last 12 years developing those plans at great expense to the city. We've done so through grants, we've done so through general fund, we've done so through our enterprise funds. The strategic planning process is designed to assist the city in meeting the challenges of the future and help us establish clear objectives and to sustain the vitality of the community. A consultant was selected to assist us with that process. That's Dr. John Luthi of the Futures Corporation in Boise. The mayor and I visited Dr. Luthi probably about a year and a half ago, darn close to it. Negotiated an agreement with him, and he began actively assisting us in August of 2014. So the timeline that we participated in, October 1st was the beginning of the process when Dr. Luthi started off with kickoff meetings to talk to us about what strategic planning was. He had kickoff meetings for the staff, for operations teams. Each department developed an operations team or identified an operations team. Then they also had worked with the City Council to orient the City Council on the benefits of strategic planning. Once that was done, and this was kind of a excursion that we hadn't anticipated, and that is operational overviews. Operational overviews are a review of what each department in the city actually does. And part of that purpose of that exercise is as you are developing your strategic plans, you need to have an idea of the work you are doing to determine how much of your time you can take from other projects in order to do an effective job. So these operations overviews took a couple of months to draft, and those were distributed at the City Council meeting. They are probably 90 to 95% done. They described what is being done in each department, and we also tried to identify metrics or measurements by which we can gauge progress being made and how we know if the job is being done. That was completed in December of 2014 for the most part, although redrafting continued into the new year. Strategic plan issues were drafted, and they were due March 4th, at which time they're called major challenge areas, and those were things that each department identified within their own strategic planning process as being what they see as the major challenges, whether it is we don't have enough staff or we aren't able to raise the funding that we need to develop parks, or the streets are deteriorating, we don't have the means by which to fix them in a manner which replace infrastructure in a way which is reasonable, so that it doesn't all ball up at the end and we end up not being able to keep the city's assets in good shapes. So those are forwarded to the City Council as major challenge areas, and once those issues were identified, Council looked at them in the order of all the things that you see up here. What is the impact of the major challenge area? And let me preface that by saying, as these were forwarded to the City Council then rated them individually, and then all of those ratings were compiled, and those are what we talked about last week when Dr. Luthi was again in Moscow. Last Tuesday we had our strategic planning rating session. So these are the criteria: the impact of the challenge area, the magnitude, how big is it? Is it something that we can expect is going to be something that's going to take our attention, or is it something that is going to pass very quietly and won't be a huge issue? pervasiveness? Is it something that affects the entire community or a significant segment of the community? Threat level. If the major challenge area, if the challenge comes to pass, what is going to be the impact or the threat to the community? Is it going to happen more than once? Is it once in a lifetime? Is it once every 2 years? Is it once every 5 years? Are these short or long-term challenges? Are they things that we'll be able to handle within a budget year? Are they things like deteriorating sewer system that we need to fund over a period of 20 to 30 years? Can we control it, or is it something that's just going to happen? For instance, you can have crises or natural disasters. We have no control over those. All we can control is the response. Implementation timing. At what point should you do this? It's a little bit like the library discussion we just had. Do we continue to allow it to deteriorate and then it'll be a bigger issue, or is it something that we ought to start on either accumulating money or at least finding how big the bread box is by obtaining the services of a consultant? And lastly, how do these fit into the long-term community vision? Obviously, you as the City Council are the conscience of the community, and you set the guidance and the direction that the city goes forward. City staff takes your direction in development of the annual budget, and we come back and ask for direction throughout the year. So we look for your interpretation of the community's wants and needs. This is really hard to read, but you have it in your packets. These are the external and internal challenge areas. The ones that you saw last Tuesday had the individual ratings from each of the council members. Those are available if anybody wants them. They are a public document. However, this is the compilation. So as you read down through those, Tier 3, which would be those that are closest to the numeral 3 in a descending order, in order of importance to the City Council as they individually rated these. Again, these are major challenge areas that are identified by the departments that work in those areas, and they are not just things that staff came up with. They are things that we are working with the council on, have worked with the council on, continue to work with the council on, or things that we try to address every year, but we just don't have the resources to deal with in a manner which we think we would like to in order to keep the material usable. So on top you can see the external challenge area that was considered to be the most major is deteriorating pavement conditions. And as I indicated last Tuesday, with all the work that's being done in the federal government with the Grow America plan, which is being promoted by DOT Secretary Anthony Fox, and our own Idaho legislature debating how to fund deteriorating roads and bridges in the state of Idaho last year, and came up about 2/3 short of what they had hoped that they would, at the beginning of the session, be able to put toward it. Now, there was a plan that was put forward, and we will be receiving some increased tax funding or state funding for roads, but still it's significantly less. You've heard Tyler Palmer talk about he needs $800,000 to $1 million a year just as a beginning to maintain the roads. That isn't taking into account construction of new roads, major repairs, so on and so forth. So just descending order, I could spend, as you all have, you've heard from staff, you've debated among yourselves, we talked about it ad nauseum last week. So there are 3 tiers in each external and internal categories. You can tell by the subtle shading of the bands up on the board. But as you know, we have like anybody, our own household incomes included, we have limited resources, and it is up to the City Council to prioritize which projects those resources will be expended upon. So just wanted to show the public that this is the format of strategic planning that we are proceeding with. It's a little late in this budget process to take it piecemeal, address each of these issues, but I will guarantee you that there probably 90% of these are being addressed in one fashion or another in the development of the FY 2016 budget, just as they were addressed maybe in about the same percentage in past budgets. These are the issues that have been discussed with Council, and Council has pointed out over the past several years. So next year, hopefully, we will have even a better systematic approach in the development of the budget so that we can address these and be able to show the Council, okay, how do we show progress toward addressing these? Some of them, as you can see up there, deteriorating pavement conditions. It isn't like the city has a couple of $1 million a year to put toward fixing the streets. We will have to be creative, we'll have to reprioritize, and it isn't going to be something that one fell swoop, we're going to take care of it, and then we don't have to think about it again. Like anything else, it's something that you're going to have to address year to year, and we hope to hopefully have a plan in order to proceed with that. In the internal, you have the same thing. You've got law enforcement staffing. If you recall that one, that had to do with wanting an additional cyber investigator in order to deal with some of the internet crimes that are being done. So that was high on the priority list, and again, it is being addressed in this year's budget, and the Council ultimately will be the ones to say whether that is in or that is out, just as everything up here is listed. So with that, that is a document that is available and will be on the city's website, and we will proceed with addressing that in this coming and future budgets. So with that, I want to take the opportunity to say that this project is not complete. We continue to work on departmental strategic plans. As Dr. Luthi indicated, these are not intuitive. It takes a little bit of rethinking. Usually our goal-setting process in the past has been annual, if not 2 or 3 years in advance. We're seeing the need, I think, as the Council has, that we need to address these issues on a long-term basis. One of the last plans that we are putting together at this point is, there's only 2 that have to be finished up. One is the facilities plan. The other is the long-range financial plan, which will then take these needs, all that these plans have determined, and then say, well, those are needs. These are the financial resources you have to address those. How do you want to address them?
Water conservation.
Excuse me?
Water conservation plan isn't finished.
Yes, you're right, exactly. It's being reviewed right now by the Sustainable Environment Commission. You're right. But we have probably, I'll bet another 10 plans that have been completed. So anyway, we're moving ahead. But I want to thank the Council for setting us down this path. I want to thank the staff for the many, many hours that has been spent on this project, and the commitment to getting something to the Council that hopefully you can look at and determine, okay, how do we rate these? Are we making progress? What direction do we need to do to make sure that we're well positioned in the future for the community?
Thank you, Gary, for that update. Does anybody have questions for Gary before I turn them loose? Walter?
If I may, Gary, is there a chance that when we are given the budget that we would get a report on what funds are being proposed in the 2016 budget to address which of these line items?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, and that's a good question, we tried in past budgets, as you know, when we have a council goal, we try within our narratives, and our budget is fairly readable. It's thick, but it's readable.
I'm asking about a listing, which would make it much easier for us.
And going through each line item.
Well, no, this listing.
Sure.
And showing what the proposal is in the budget presented to us of how many dollars toward which line?
Certainly.
Or something
sure.
Where we can try to tie this list that we've acted on to the budget.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with doing that. And I think, you know, there have been times in the past, as you know, that there is a council goal, the budget's developed, and the council goal may not be included in the budget. We've always provided an explanation and said this, we were unable to fund this because of a certain reason.
I don't expect you to put money against every one of these. I just would like to have some idea of
You bet.
what money's going toward
And some of those things, there will be nothing that goes towards it. We'll make sure everybody knows that, too.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do that in the introductory part, Walter, in July.
Yeah, hopefully it'll make the process a lot more transparent and understandable.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.